Welcome to the Hero's Journey podcast. We are back. We're on episode number 47. And when we left off, we were looking at Golden Age comics from November of 1944. I was reading my way through that. So we're going to pick up where we left off. We were down to around the S's of the alphabet, going alphabetical order. So without further ado, let's get right to the comic book, see what 10 are up. And don't forget, we're on the new format now. So at the end of the, I'll read through all the 10. And at the end, you'll get to try to figure out which one was the most valuable. And then I'll give you the most recent market prices as of this recording. All right, here we go. All right, first up, we have Sensation Comics, number 35. This is DC, November 1944. I like the cover. It's got lots going on for it. Underwater city, some whales, H.G. Peter, good stuff. Wonder Woman coming down from her invisible plane. The only thing that bothers me about this cover, and it keeps drawing my eye, is how the emblem on her chest is white. It should be yellow. And clearly there's other yellow elements on the cover, but for some reason that sticks out and it bothers me. I don't like it. Is what it is. All right. So in the first story, Wonder Woman heads back to Atlantis because crooked politicians have taken over the government there. And here, I'll show you what was going on. And so in Wonder Woman's efforts to help out the people there, she thought she would do battle showing an Amazon hold, one of the removes called the kitten hold. You just, I guess, I don't know, you grab her head, throw her legs up there and wrap her up. That's the kitten hold. I thought that was great. Good times. All right, next story. Sargon the sorcerer discovers that his magician buddy has been replaced by a Nazi spy that is sending out coded messages during his act. Mr. Terrific is kidnapped and forced to dive for diamonds in an old shipwreck. Now I will show you another slide. So I just thought it was interesting because the transatlantic cable that's being shown in these, it's a transatlantic telegraph cable that's being shown in these panels, was also featured in the Wonder Woman story. And so Mr. Terrific sends out a Morse code, attaches a machine to the transatlantic cable, was down there, and sends out a Morse code for just to get some help. So that was fun. And yeah, so he's down there, diamonds. I just thought it was interesting that the transatlantic telegraph cable was featured in two different stories where I haven't seen it featured or spoken about in all this time. After that, Wildcat figures out that his boxing match is rigged by crooks using ultraviolet light to blind people and rob them. And here you have Wildcat. This is the first page of the story there with the huge eyeball. I just thought at the bottom, I just thought it was funny. You know, Ted Grant, Wildcat goes undercover. So he puts a disguise over his disguise. I just think it's hilarious whenever a costumed hero puts a costume over his costume. Good times. Okay. After that, Star Spangled Comics number 38. I didn't have a really great scan of this cover. Could not find a really good image, but this is it. Fun cover. Got all these model planes attacking bad guy, Japanese bad guy. And I'm going to apologize because I can tell you right off that some of these slides are not the best quality. I just couldn't find the scans of these comic books were not the best quality. So unfortunately, it is what it is. You'll have to use maybe your imagination, or you'll have to just enjoy the sound of my voice. So this is, right. So Star Spangled Comics number 38, DC, November 1944. The Guardian intervenes when a gangster tries to take a percentage of an oil well, which turns out to be worthless. And And this, oh yeah, look at this. I just thought this panel was great. That is quite the hit. That's the Guardian taking out a bad guy. Man, he really he nailed him good. I love it. I just thought it was a great, great panel. Robot Man gets a tip from Robbie the robot dog, and they take down a gang of crooks. Star Spangled Kid has a hard time believing that his partner Stripesy was framed for being a thief. Sure. And finally, Liberty Bell discovers a plan by German prisoners to escape an attack in American camp. So a couple slides tonight. Look at that. Liberty Bell splash page. She's hitting a tank with a rocket, it looks like. And already there's another one. There's another rocket ready to go in there. And her that looks great. I thought it looked great. I just thought maybe the reloading might be a little bit quick based on the other one I've just gotten out. This also from Liberty Bell story. This has got to be the worst electric barbed wire fence I've ever seen. Clearly doesn't work very well if someone can just jump through. I understand taking a chance, but easy to just jump through. All right. Whiz Comics number 60, Fawcett, November 1944. You got Captain Marvel on the front of the issue here, tangling with some papers, some ticker tape. This cover does have to do with the Captain Marvel story that's inside. And I'll tell you about it. Captain Marvel helps a scatterbrained inventor discover that he is the missing man that he is looking for. So this inventor invented a missing persons machine, but unfortunately he's pretty scatterbrained. So he didn't realize that the missing person that he's looking for is actually him. Anyway, here is a slide from this issue. So here's where I talk about how it's terrible scan. So if you remember, for those who are faithful audience members, this was the cover for the last issue of Whiz Comics, that'll be number 59, where it showed all the characters pretty much from the Marvel family stories, and then on the right hand side here is a list of all the names of the characters and who they are. No real surprises, of course, because we've been paying attention to these stories for such a long time that we knew what was going on. In the second story, Ibis the Invincible races to find out which child ended up being the. I understand that. That's ridiculous. Ibis the Invincible races to find out which child ended up with the real Ibis stick after it was mistakenly given away by a crooked toy manufacturer. He was trying to manufacture tons of these so he could replace the real one and take the real one for himself, and then wouldn't know which is which because there's so many fake ones out there. But unfortunately for the crook, the real Ibis stick ended up going to an unsuspecting child, and then mayhem ensues, and it was good times all around. All right, Wow Comics, number 31, Fawcett, November 1944. With a black background like this one, you have to bet this has got to be really tough to find in a high grade. Mary Marvel travels in a plane suffering mishaps that seem to match the tales being told by the passengers. But in reality, it's a floating bird city trying to keep humans from discovering them. It just so happens that their misfortunes and the stories coincide, but it's some bird city trying to keep the humans away. So if you weren't aware of it, so this is the on the right hand side. This is the first page of the Mary Marvel story. I thought on the right hand side, some people might be interested to know what Mary Marvel's Shazam stood for. So you have the S, Selena, Grace, Hippolyta, Strength, Ariadne, Skill, Zephyrus, Fleetness, Aurora, Beauty, and Minerva, Wisdom. There you go. All those names spell out Shazam, and their attributes are also listed there. Good times. Okay, so that'll do it for November of 1944. With that, we move on to December of 1944, on the last month of that year. Very exciting. No further ado, of course, we're back to Action Comics, DC, December 1944. This is issue number 79. I gotta say, this is not going to end up being in anyone's top 10 action covers ever. If anyone's collecting sheep covers, this one's for you. But other than that, this is kind of a ho-hum sort of action cover. Now, the gentleman on the front is Wilbur Wolfingham, who's a notorious con man. So in the story, Superman confronts Wilbur Wolfingham once again, and once again, his swindling ends up enriching his intended victims and leaves himself penniless. So that's how his stories end up, is that he tries to con people out of money and goods and land and whatever. In the end, Superman is on to him. Things get reversed, but the intended victims actually end up coming out ahead, and Wilbur Wolfingham ends up with nothing. So as part of this story, Superman, he alters the wind directions of an entire section of the country. So that's impressive. And so it's not just in this, like, he wanted to make it rain over this farming area, and the clouds just weren't coming across over the mountains. So it would rain on the other side of the mountains, but not where there was kind of a drought going on, where Superman was trying to help out. So you see so at the bottom of that narration panel, it says, the incredible feat of altering the wind directions of an entire section of the country. That is impressive. In the next panel, or next story here, Superman sees that a bolt of lightning is going to hit a building. So he has the time to see the lightning bolt come. Then he has enough time to get to be between the lightning bolt and the building to intercept it. Now that is impressive. So now not only has he altered the wind direction of the winds in a section of the country, this guy is moving faster than lightning. And I understand that's faster than the speed of light, but he's moving faster than the speed of light after he's noticed what's going to happen. So think about this. There's going to be a delay. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever played any kind of sports or had any kind of reaction times that needed to be, you got to move quickly, right? Ball's coming towards you. Whoo, I got to move, right? So you have to see the ball. You have to think, I got to move, and then you got to move. All those things happen, of course, very quickly. But this guy does it faster than the speed of light. So his thoughts are faster than the speed of light, and his movements. There you go. All right. In the next story, Zatara's magic secret almost gets out when a swindler figures out that the magic words must be heard to work. So, and here's a panel from the Zatara story. Again, I apologize for the scan. It's beyond my control, unfortunately, but I just thought it was interesting that he turned a couple crooks into corkscrews. And what's interesting, if you don't know how Zatara's words work, is that he says whatever he wants to happen backwards, and it happens. So you see, read at the bottom there, it says read each word backwards. And so it says legs twist if you read it forwards. And then, but his spells, but apparently according to this story, we find out that his spells must be heard to work. So if the intended, we'll call them victims, these corkscrew guys hadn't heard it, it wouldn't have worked. Now you know. Adventure Comics, number 95. This is the December-January issue. We'll say 1944, 1945. Much better scan of the cover. Love it. Love the scan. I mean, geez, I really wish the trade dress wouldn't take up almost half of the cover. That's just nuts. You know what? Not the worst cover I've seen. Again, it's a trade dress that just, come on. It doesn't have to be that big. All right. So Sandman and Sandy figure out that a painter is retouching museum masterpieces to make them look like fakes. Purchase them for a song, remove the retouches, and then sell them for full value. So it's a great scam. He makes these masterpieces look like they're fakes. And then so they're like, oh, the music's like, oh no, they're fakes. We just got to get rid of these. And it's like, whoa, I'll buy them from you. So he buys the fakes so that he's, lawfully removing the paintings from the museum. And he removes the retouches that he did, sells it off again. You're talking about like a Picasso for $70,000. Ooh, that's big money in 1944 days, but Picasso will probably go for a lot more now. Anyway, so Sandman and Sandy are jumping out of a plane. I don't know how well you can see this, but they end up in a plane following the bad guys. Bad guys parachute out, and the plane is set to crash. So Sandman and Sandy shoot out some arrow lines there, some lines to try to grab the parachute so they can, go down with the bad guys and land safely. I just thought it was very interesting how on the parachute on the right hand side, you see all those strings coming down the ropes. Somehow, if you see that line, it like zigzagged its way through and weaved its way through those ropes. Now that is impressive. I gotta say, very impressive. Next story, Starman has to rescue his absent-minded professor friend that he inadvertently locked himself inside a burglar-proof safe after he inadvertently locks him. So absent-minded professor friend went to go to astrology conference, but he ends up going to a safe crackers convention, bank security convention of some sort. Anyway, he ends up inside this big foolproof safe. Starman's the one that gets him out. La-di-da. Now, this is the art from one of the pages. I found it very basic and simple, but there are backgrounds, there are interesting elements in there. I thought, to be fair, I thought the art was very simple, but I thought it was pretty effective actually. So I'm actually not picking on this. I just look, like I said, it's basic. It is what it is, but I found it told the story quite well. Next up, All American Comics number 62. This is DC, December 1944. The thing I like the most about this cover is if you look at the lamps on the desk, that you put the DC logo inside one of the lamps. I love that. That's clever. Use the trade dress and markings and the logo as part of your cover. That is fantastic work. I love that. Simple but effective. And because of that, this is probably going to be one of my most one of the covers I like the most of All American Comics so far. And all it is because of that one simple touch. Although you do lose a couple points because the Green Lantern doesn't even seem to have that mallet in his hand. I don't know. He's just got a closed fist and the mallet just sort of ends at his head. But I won't nitpick any further than that. All right. Well, on the cover, I won't nitpick any more on the cover. Green Lantern and Doiby Dickles end up on opposite sides of the law while on vacation when Doiby becomes the district attorney of a small town and Green Lantern is tried for vagrancy. And afterwards, because Doiby did such a good job getting the bad guys and all the rest of the stuff, that they renamed the town after Doiby. So check this out. So there's our, again, not a great scan. I found it funny how Green Lantern, so is Alan Scott's, his right arm, Jesus, so long. It just looks so funny to me. Yeah, really, really long arm. Next, Green Lantern again. Now he's got weird legs. It looks like his knees, his legs bend the opposite way from, like it looks like his knees are on backwards. I don't know what it is. Just the way he's standing. There's something about that perspective that's throwing me off. I don't like it. His stance looks funny because his legs look like they're the wrong way. All right, well, what are you gonna do? And there is the town named after Doiby. Green Lantern seems to have more reasonable arms in this shot of them walking out of the town. Doibyville. There you go. Next up, Dr. Midnight is responsible for the accident that caused a fearless cop to lose his nerve about guns, but then helps him get his courage back. So here's something interesting. Okay, in the top top middle panel, you see Dr. Midnight is walking through the room full of guns the bad guys had, and he says, "I'll spike their guns for them." So generally what it was when you're, and this is, I wanted to know what that term meant, and what it actually did was it was a practice of inserting a spike into enemy guns to prevent them from firing. So, but I assumed that meant that it somehow jammed the firing pin, which is surprising because on the bottom left panel, and that this is where it causes the accident that hurts the cop. So you got a cop who grabbed a couple guns off the table that belonged to the bad guys that were spiked, and he goes to fire them and they explode in his hands, which I don't believe that actually would have happened if they were spiked properly. See, it says the spiked revolvers come up in Brannigan's hands, his fingers squeeze the trigger and boom. But that really shouldn't have happened if they were spiked properly, preventing the hammers from firing. I don't think they were booby trapped. I believe they were just rendered useless by being spiked. It has been, from the reading I've done, that is how that should have worked. And this was a common practice for soldiers when they had to abandon a post, for instance, and they were leaving a cannon behind. They didn't want that cannon to be used against them if the enemy came upon it. So if they're leaving a post, cannon stays behind, enemies, taking over their position, they would spike the cannon, and you drive a spike through the firing mechanism to render it useless, and in such a way that you couldn't just pull that spike back out. Like it would damage the firing mechanism. But nowhere did I read that this sort of practice with the guns or with the cannon, that it would booby trap it and cause an explosion. It would just render it useless, and so it couldn't be used against them, was the plan. Okay, All Select Comics numero 5, Timely Winter 1944. We got an Alex Schomburg cover. I feel like we haven't seen one from him in a while. Maybe he took some time off. Who knows? Since it's Alex Schomburg, since you have the Human Torch, he is flying through a wall, of course. So is Toro. You got Bucky on the bottom right-hand side working the flamethrower, really taking a chunk out of this guy on the bottom. Yikes. But of course, you got bullets being fired. Good guys, bad guys, lots of action. Right, Alex Schomburg. Maybe not my favorite Alex Schomburg cover, but it is interesting nonetheless. Love it. Definitely interesting cover. So Captain America and Bucky lend a hand to track down a woman's kidnapped son, only to find out his uncle and some savage headhunters are keeping him in the city. So this is actually the splash page from that story. You got, and the reason I thought I'd feature it is because of that red dress distress you got there. You got torn skirt with the bondage. I mean, not sure. Bucky tied up. That's not new. He's always tied. He's tied up on most of the splash pages, if not the covers. But those are, and I guess, it's tough because these comics all have value for different reasons, but most of the time it's the cover. Like when you're a collector, a speculator, you're buying an old comic, you're not often buying it for the guts unless there's something that happens in it. But even then, you're not buying it for that particular panel. You're generally buying for the cover. So there, I know that the red dress to stress and all that fun stuff and the bondage is generally only going to help the value of the comic book if it's on the cover and people can see it. But I thought I'd show it anyways. Who knows? Maybe someone will be interested in, well, hey, there's some bondage on the inside. So I don't know. You like it, you like it. Great. The Human Torch and Toro attend a theater where actors are being killed by the prop master as he's not happy that the theater now puts on comedy shows instead of Shakespearean plays as they used to. The Whizzer proves to gangster Ed Turtle that speed and brains wins out over slow and steady with brains. So Ed Turtle loves to do things slow, but he's got the brains. The Whizzer's fast and stuff, but he's also got brains, so you can't beat him. Don't try just being slow. Here, okay, this is fun. This is from the USDA. This was used between 1943 and 1956. Okay, so on the left, I'm showing the actual page from the comic book. On the right, I pulled up a cleaner version, better colors. So back in the day, there were 7 food groups. Like when I grew up, there were 4 food groups, right? And most of them are represented here. I just thought it was great that butter and margarine gets its own food group. How awesome is that? Look, I get it. Obesity wasn't a problem back then. This wasn't your concern. You just wanted to get healthy food groups. But you had to eat from these 7 food groups every day. Look, I don't know about you guys, but I always had a hard time eating from 4 food groups, let alone 7 food groups. And they broke out, a lot of these really break out fruits and vegetables into 3 different food groups, like milk and milk products. All right. Meat, poultry, fish, eggs. Yeah. Nothing new. Breads, flour, and cereals. Those are like 3 of the food groups I grew up on anyways. And then butter, margarine just probably fall under dairy. I'm not sure about margarine, newer margarine. No, definitely not. But then there was just fruits and vegetables. That was the 4th food group. I know that now we're splitting up vegetables and fruits and whatever, but it's great. The green and yellow vegetables was its own food group. Oranges, tomato, grapefruit is a food group at that time. Potatoes and other vegetables and fruits. That's great. And then it said, in addition to the basic 7, eat any other foods you want. So as soon as you cover all these basic 7 food groups, then you can eat everything you want. That is a serious amount of food to be putting away every day. Okay. I thought it was a fun thing. Why not? Okay. So we're moving on to the Submariner story. In this one, Submariner investigates after some merchant ships are being destroyed in the Great Lakes and discovers that Nazis are using mini submarines disguised as turtles. So they kind of have it on the splash page I'm showing here from the story. These are mini subs with there's a guy breaking out of it, coming out of it there as a Submariner takes a chunk out of him. So they're mini subs with a Nazi in them disguised as turtles. I don't know if you can see on the bottom right, turtle, it's a little tiny periscope up there. Anyway, so these herd of turtles would be floating around and torpedoes would be fired out the side and they'd destroy these merchant ships. Like, hey, how did this happen? We don't know. Oh my goodness. Fun stuff all around. Okay. All right. Oh, All-Star Comics, number 23, Winter, 1944. So this is a full-length adventure of the Justice Society of America. So just to give you the current roll call for those guys, you have Hawkman as the chairman, Dr. Midnight, Spectre, Atom, Starman, Johnny Thunder. So there's 6 members these days. Those are 6 guys on the cover. I believe there were 8 previously or in the beginning. And then they note that Wonder Woman is the secretary. Now, she is not in the issue. Wonder Woman does not make an appearance in the issue. Honorary members are Flash, Batman, Green Lantern, and Superman. This issue will feature the last appearance of Spectre in All-Star Comics, certainly in this volume. And the story is the Justice Society of America answers the challenge from master criminal psycho pirate who pulls off crimes based on specific emotions. It's lots of fun. So this is Johnny Thunder kind of in the forefront there. Okay, I'll start developing a poker face. Looks all crazy about working on his poker face because this bad guy's going to prey on their feelings and emotions. So he doesn't want to give anything up. I know. I'm sorry. It's poor scan. Again, poor scan. I know. I just thought it was cool because I just thought this was interesting. The middle panel is for a moment. The cold, stark fingers of fear tighten their grip around the fighting heart of the man of midnight. So the middle panel is supposed to be a heart with the cold fingers of fear gripping it. So what it looks like a planet. Neptune? I don't know. How about this? An amazing new sensation. Amazing new game sensation. Let's go to college. That's a fun game, right? I want to assume the board is a lot bigger than what they're showing there, but I just thought it was fun. New board game they're advertising in the comics there. This guy rolled a 7. It's great. That's all I want to show you. That's it. Okay, last but not least, we have All Winners Comics, number 14, winter issue from Timely 1944, another Alex Schomburg cover. So, of course, lots of shooting, lots of guns. Got Bucky swooping in. Looks like they're on the deck of a ship. It's great. I feel I'm going to say I have generally enjoyed Alex Schomburg's artwork on the covers. These most recent works that we've been looking at, I don't appreciate as much. There's something that I don't know what it is. I feel like not as much care is being given to the main characters. Maybe it seems like it's falling short. And I get it. Every artist has a bad day and can't turn in the best cover each week or each month or each day's organized covers. I get that. Doesn't impress me. I'm sorry. So this is the first 36-page issue, and that's down from 52 pages previous issue. So Submariner finds the underwater hideout of the thieves who stole the Maharaja's jewels. And to do that, he had to go underwater and fight some fish, big barracudas. It's just that I had to cringe a little bit on the panel on the bottom right, where he just grabs the fish's mouth and just crack. You know, he opens it up like I cringe a little bit. I don't know why. And then here's a cutaway of the hideout from the bad guys. I love cutaways. That's my thing. That's my thing is cutaways. So he's looking. It's a very small underwater hideout. It's an airlock. There's the bad guys in the bottom there with the jewels. Submariner's on his way. Next up, Captain America and Bucky foil the scheme by Japanese spies to use jigsaw puzzles to capture war plant blueprints with photosensitive material. I thought this had to be the most ambitious plant, or just shot in the dark. Like they gave these Japanese spies were giving out jigsaw puzzles to these plant workers in the hopes that they would be working on these puzzles on their breaks on top of their desks where they're doing working on very sensitive material. And what happened was the bottom of the puzzle would have some sort of photosensitive material which would capture an image of what the puzzle was resting on. Right. So it seemed like, really, I mean, would you actually capture most of what was on there or anything? It seemed pretty far-fetched, right? Even for a comic book. But fine. So from that story, I just thought this was interesting. Another great hit. Captain America just pow. Oh, sorry, that might have been loud. Said, come on, do your worst. And just knocked him out on the bottom. I thought it was great. I also thought if you look around the middle left, so second row on the left, I just thought, holy smokes, look at Captain America's stride. Man, that guy is not even touching the ground. He's all legs, this guy. That is impressive. Last story. Here's the splash page from a Wizard story. I just thought it was great to see that guy in action. I guess, it's funny. A lot of attention goes to the covers of these books. And when you finally get into these books and you read the stories and you're looking at them, a lot of them have great splash pages. And it's unfortunate because the splash pages will never get nearly as much attention as the covers. So, for my part, maybe I'll start making sure to show off some of these better splash pages that deserve a little attention. Why not? So you got the Wizard is in his motion wave, whatever, motion airstream, slipstream, I guess. It says Whiz. The Wizard falls for a trap set by the Twist so that he can carry out his kidnapping plan. Okay, that's all 10 books. So these are the 10 books that we looked at in this episode. You got some Marvel family in there. I swear there's not a way I can get around. I don't know. Every episode is Marvel family. It is. These guys are everywhere. You got a lot of DC books. So 2 Fawcett books, a lot of DC books. We didn't have any quality issues this time around. 2 timely issues. Now, when I started looking these up to see the market value, I had an idea of where I thought the big book was going to land. Now, I got to say, it was a bit of a toss-up. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I didn't guess correctly. I guessed wrong. I could have flipped the coin. I guessed incorrectly. So without further ado, if you've got your picks, you know which is which. Try to guess which one was the top book. Try to guess who came in to a close second or third or fourth. On down. Ready? Hacha, look at that. You got it. It was a timely book that won out. It was the All Winners number 14 because of 7.0 from May of 2021, which is the month that this is being recorded in, went for $4,800. It's a huge chunk. Now, the All Select Comics, the problem was the most recent sales is almost 2 years old. So for $4,000 in a slightly higher grade than the All Winners. If there was a more recent sale for that All Select, it may have dethroned the All Winners. I thought All Select might take it because you've got both Alex Schomburg covers. You've got more characters on the front and in the book that people would probably more attracted to. That Sensation Comics number 35 for having a $1,000 sale at 7.0 is actually quite nice. The Action Comics 687. It's also good. Well, all right, you know what? All right, it's not that great. All Star Comics is got a higher price for a 5.5. So actually, All Star Comics did a lot better. What else do we have? 9.4 for that Wow Comics. Wow Comics 9.4 from January 2021, $1,550. That's pretty decent. And for 9.4 for that cover has got to be impressive. And there are only 8 on the CGC census for this book. So that's Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I expect that's probably a recognizable cover for people who love the Mary Marvel books. Not look, I'm not sure. The lowest book would probably have to be that Whiz Comics. Because at an 8.5, you're only getting $212, which is less than Star Spangled Comics and less than All American Comics. Yeah, so it's the lowest price, lowest sale, lowest most recent sale, and for an 8.5, that's just crazy low. Although I've heard now, see, back in the day, these guys were boasting that Action Comics and is it Whiz Comics? We're selling somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 copies. Like even like today, like in 2021, it's extremely rare that a comic would sell for that many copies. Back in the 90s, early 90s, sure, fine. 92, I think it was all the rage when things would hit a few million, sure. But this is back in 1944. These guys are selling 500,000 copies each. So you have to figure that a lot of copies are out there. And I mean, I don't know if the census really tells you that there's hundreds of these graded, but I feel it must be more plentiful. Maybe the covers aren't quite as iconic. So that's it. That's the end of all the comics that we've looked at for this episode, for episode number 47 of the Hero's Journey podcast. I feel like the lighting has changed since this episode started. I'm trying to use a lot of natural light. I love the natural light for this show. I try to use as much as I can, trying to shoot during the daytime, but I even had to close curtains in the back because it actually causes too much light. But when you start a show and it's sunny, the clouds don't always cooperate, and I guess the sun's gone behind the clouds now, so the window that is providing all the light source, not as much anymore. What are you going to do? All right. Hopefully you had an inkling as to what was going to be the bestseller on the what's the highest market value big book of the week. Maybe I should put like the small book of the week or little book of the week. So this week it would have been that Whiz Comics number Whiz Comics 60, I believe, which only sold for $212, 8.5 June 2020. That's it. That wraps it up. So I will be back next episode with another 10 issues, and we'll see what happens then. We are into December 1944, really closing in on the end of the year where we flip the calendar and switch over to 1945. Excitement never stops.